There's a lot of discussion about the possibility that we may be living inside a computer simulation. Most of these discussions revolve around the technical questions like how much processing power would it take to run a simulation of this magnitude? What kind of beings would want to create this kind of simulation, and why? Now, as you might know, this sort of thing has been questioned a lot by philosophers in the past. For example, the philosopher Descartes, who lived in the 1600s, came up with the phrase, "I think, therefore I am." He arrived at this conclusion by first pointing out that because our senses can be tricked, we can't be sure that we're experiencing the real world. However, Descartes did believe that his mind was real. His reasoning was the following. The fact that I think proves to me that I am real, and if there are any doubts about that, well, I'm the one doing the doubting, so I must be real. I can only doubt my realness if I have a mind to doubt it with, so yes, I'm real. This was Descartes' argument. So the reason serious thinkers are considering whether this is a simulation or not is because the fact that we technically can't be sure that our senses are telling us the truth. Our senses detect the outside world, then send a signal to our brain, which interprets these signals and creates our subjective experience. Now here's what I think is kind of funny about all this. Even if this is the real world, we are kind of experiencing a simulated version of it anyway. Whoa, hold up. What? Even if this is the real world, we are kind of experiencing a simulated version of it anyway. Just consider the fact that our entire experience here is only possible because our brain receives electrical signals from the outside world via the five senses, so we never really have a direct experience with reality. It's as if our body is the intermediary between the real world and our actual consciousness. An intermediary, which is precisely what a computer would be if we were plugged into it during a simulation. It takes the information from the virtual reality inside the machine and converts it to signals just like our body's senses do. So our body and its senses are basically a simulation device, except the signals come from the physical world and not the virtual world. But in both scenarios, we are just getting signals. So we're not really interacting with actual reality, even if we are in actual reality. We are interacting with a subjective reconstruction of it. In other words, a simulation of it. Why do we even care if this is a simulation? Is it that our experiences are not happening in the real world? Isn't it interesting how we don't actually get uncomfortable or feel disturbed until we question if this is real or not? It seems like we are just fine enjoying our experiences here until we ask that question. And I think that says something about us, about how we relate to joy. I think it may actually indicate that realness was never an ingredient in the things that give us happy experiences. The knowledge that something is real doesn't actually enhance how pleasurable an experience is. Like when you focus on something in the moment, like eating your most favorite delicious food. You're not thinking to yourself, oh, how amazing it is that this bowl of this food, this plate of food is really here in my hand and it exists. That's not where you derive your joy from. The joy comes from the flavor. It doesn't matter if it's real, you're not even thinking about that. In fact, if you were thinking about whether it's real or not, you're probably missing the enjoyment itself. You're missing the food itself. Actually, I can use two versions of simulation theory, and from both I could argue how experience is more valuable than whether or not the experience is real. So in one of the versions of simulation theory, let's assume that we were forced into this simulation by someone or something. And in that case, just like we rely on electrical signals for experiencing reality in the simulation, we also rely on signals out there. It has to be the case because, here we are in the simulation being tricked. So if we woke up, we would find ourselves in the same predicament. We would be questioning if that world is the real one, and we wouldn't know it because we just came out of a situation where our senses were tricked, so we'd be in the same boat. We might just start wondering if it's just simulations nested within simulations. Anyway, so in that scenario, we can see that we're left with no choice but to value the experiences themselves no matter where we are, because all we have is signals anyway. Now in the second scenario, or second version, let's say we willingly put ourselves into this simulation and that our senses in the real world cannot be tricked by anyone, because somehow we are, a different kind of being that doesn't rely on electrical signals to the brain for experience. This would then show that the real world would be more real than this one, because out there we rely on something more than just signals, unlike in here. Out there's some more direct experience with reality or something like that, who knows. But actually, that doesn't grant the real experiences any more value than the simulated experiences. Because if we decided to self-induce this dream state and live experiences in a fake dream world like this, then clearly our real self out there already believes that just experience itself is more important than realness. We could have easily had the real world out there with real experiences of real things. But no, our real self decided that fake experiences are worthwhile even next to the real ones. Actually, not just worth it, but decided to spend decades in this fake simulation. We can see that even in this scenario, we really are just left to appreciate our experiences as much as experiences allow. However, I do realize that all bets are off if we were to have another scenario of the simulation theory, where we were to consider that maybe the people in our lives, friends and family, are simulations too. Complex, very convincing, but unconscious and empty simulations. But I'll leave that big question maybe for another video. But anyway, yeah, I don't think we're living in a simulation.